I overheard my husband and son talking in hushed yet firm voices. Their words were sharp, and their tone was unmistakably annoyed. "Isn't she doing this wrong?" My husband's voice was laced with irritation. "I think she should add a bit more effort," my son responded. Their conversation was directed at my daughter-in-law, Cheryl. I glanced over at her, and to my surprise, she looked utterly stunned, her face pale, eyes wide with panic. She stood in the kitchen, holding an apple, frozen in place, as though the weight of their words had paralyzed her. As I listened, my anger began to boil.
How could they talk to her like that?
Cheryl was a kind woman who had always done her best for this family. My husband and son soon ended the call, having made their point clear. Cheryl, still trembling, dropped the apple she was holding. Ignoring her distress for a moment, I asked, "Could you call them back?" With shaky hands and near tears, Cheryl dialed my husband's number again. As I listened to their annoyed voices on the other end, I couldn't help but wonder, what exactly was happening? Let me introduce myself. My name is Raina, and I'm 62 years old. I've been taking care of household chores ever since I graduated high school. I met my husband, Oliver, through a family introduction, and we got married soon after. Our life was simple but happy. When our son, Miguel, was born, Oliver made sure to be present for every milestone, no matter how busy he was. Miguel was an affectionate child. Even when I was sick and unable to do housework, he would try his best to help. "How are you feeling, Mom? Can you eat some chicken soup?" he would ask, his little hands carefully holding a spoon. I remember one particular night when I had fallen ill. After putting Miguel to bed, Oliver cautiously approached me with a pot of soup. He had made it himself. The sight of him nervously holding the pot made me smile. Seeing me laugh, Oliver chuckled, albeit a bit awkwardly. Those were the moments that made me feel loved.
But things had changed.
Ever since Miguel got married, he no longer helped with household chores. Not that I minded much. After all, he was good to his wife, Cheryl, and that was what mattered. Yet sometimes, when I wasn't feeling well, I found myself longing for that warm, homemade chicken soup. Lately, my health has been declining. It's probably just age catching up with me, but I've been experiencing constant stomach discomfort and a loss of appetite. Since we live with Miguel and Cheryl now, Cheryl handles the cooking and dishwashing, while I take care of the other household chores. It's a fair arrangement, but lately I've been feeling feverish and exhausted. One evening, after finishing the laundry, I collapsed onto the sofa, unable to move. At that moment, Oliver walked into the living room. I watched him carefully, hoping he would notice me. But he didn't. He walked straight past me, heading to the kitchen. I listened as he prepared a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the room. A sudden coughing fit overtook me. I couldn't help it. Oliver paused for a moment, but then clicked his tongue in annoyance before leaving the room with his coffee. I sat there, stunned. When had he become so cold toward me? I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment things changed, but somewhere along the way, we had drifted apart. Thinking back to how caring he used to be, tears welled up in my eyes. I quickly wiped them away with my sleeve. That evening, dinner was meatloaf, but given my poor health, I opted for chicken soup. I knew it was a hassle for Cheryl to prepare a separate meal just for me, but she did so without a single complaint. "Mom, chicken soup again?" Miguel asked. "Cheryl's gone through the trouble of making a nice dinner. Isn't it rude not to eat it?"
Don't say that, Miguel.
"I'm sure Raina feels bad enough as it is," Cheryl interjected with a chuckle. I smiled weakly and let the comment slide. Cheryl could be blunt at times, but she was a wonderful cook and incredibly considerate. Tonight's chicken soup was different. She had added a touch of citrus to help with my appetite. As everyone else happily dug into their meatloaf, I sipped my soup. But then I stopped. Something was off. A strange, chemical taste lingered in my mouth. At first, I thought it was the wax from the citrus peel, but even avoiding it didn't help. I took another sip. The taste was still there. I furrowed my brows. My husband noticed and shot me a stern look, as if warning me not to make a fuss. Feeling guilty, I left most of my bowl untouched. Cheryl noticed. "Didn't it taste good?" she asked with concern. Feeling cornered, I forced a smile and lied. I'm just not feeling well. But deep inside, a creeping suspicion was taking root. Days passed, and I slowly started to recover. One morning, Cheryl and Miguel had plans to go out, so it was my turn to cook. Eager to finally get out of the house, I decided to walk to the supermarket for groceries. But as I stepped outside, a strange sensation washed over me. My body felt sluggish, almost as if I had been weakened over time. Perhaps it was just a lack of exercise after being bedridden. Or maybe it was something else. As I stood at the traffic light, waiting to cross the street, an eerie chill ran down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, and I was about to uncover a truth more shocking than I could have ever imagined. A sudden chill ran through my body. My vision blurred, and before I knew it, everything around me faded into darkness. Instinctively, I squatted down, my body trembling. Cold sweat dripped down my forehead as a wave of dizziness overwhelmed me. I clutched my collar tightly, gasping for breath. Passers-by glanced at me curiously as they walked by, their concerned murmurs barely reaching my ears. The distant sound of an ambulance siren grew louder, but my body refused to move. My limbs felt heavy, as if an invisible force was pressing down on me. Then everything went black. When I finally regained consciousness, I was staring at a white ceiling. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled my nose. Blinking, I realized I was in a hospital bed. "Oh, Raina, you're awake." A familiar voice called out to me. Turning my head weakly, I saw Cheryl standing beside my bed, her expression unreadable. I tried to respond, but my throat was dry, my body uncooperative. My limbs felt weak, as though all my strength had been drained. For that, I couldn't be more grateful to Cheryl. She had been the one to bring me here, after all. Yet, as I looked up to thank her, something about her face unsettled me. I couldn't pinpoint what it was, but a strange fear crept into my heart. Oblivious to my unease, Cheryl reached for a fruit basket on the bedside table and picked up an apple. "Raina, you haven't been eating well lately. It's probably just malnutrition. Eat this and get better soon," she said gently, peeling the apple with a small fruit knife. Her voice was soft, but something about her words didn't sit right with me. Suddenly, a phone rang. For a moment, I wondered whose it was. Then I saw Cheryl's phone screen light up. My husband's name was displayed. "Cheryl, your phone's ringing," I said, my voice still weak. She hesitated for a brief second before responding.
"Oh, yes.
"Can you put it on speaker?" My hands are full peeling the apple. I reached for the phone, pressing the speaker button as requested. Then, I heard my husband's voice. "How is she?" my husband asked. Cheryl's grip on the apple tightened slightly. "She just woke up. I'm peeling an apple for her right now." "She's conscious again?" "What stamina she has," my husband muttered. I frowned. What kind of response was that? Shouldn't he have sounded relieved? Before I could process it, another voice chimed in. It was Miguel. "What's going on?" "She's awake already." Something was off. Their tones so casual, so indifferent. This wasn't how worried family members should sound. And then, I heard something that sent a shiver down my spine. Didn't expect her to wake up this soon. Did we mess up somehow? My blood ran cold. I looked at Cheryl, but she was frozen in place, her fingers still clutching the fruit knife. Then my husband's voice continued, as though discussing an everyday household chore. "Hey, Cheryl, you've been skimping on the detergent lately, haven't you? Should we add a bit more?" "Detergent?" I felt my breath hitch. My mind struggled to comprehend what I had just heard. "What on earth are they talking about?" I whispered, my hands shaking as I clutched the hospital sheets. I turned back to Cheryl. She was still holding the apple, her face pale as a ghost. She was trembling, and that's when it clicked. They had been adding detergent to my meals. That strange taste in my soup, that lingering chemical bitterness I couldn't place, it wasn't my imagination. Cheryl's fingers twitched, and the apple slipped from her grasp, rolling onto the hospital bed. But my husband and son's voices continued, completely unaware that I was listening. "Even if we fix the detergent ratio, maybe just mixing it into her food isn't enough," Miguel said. Yeah, I'd like that insurance money sooner rather than later, my husband added with a chuckle. Maybe we should mix it into her drinks next time. It's amazing she hasn't noticed, Miguel scoffed. Then my husband laughed. A deep, cruel laugh. She won't notice. This is someone who doesn't even realize she's despised. And with that, the call ended. A deafening silence filled the hospital room. I clenched the bed sheets, my body shaking. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. How had it come to this? My own husband, my own son, and even my daughter-in-law, they had been poisoning me. For what?
Money?
Convenience? Just to be rid of me?
Why?
No matter how hard I searched for an answer, none would come. I turned to Cheryl. My eyes burned with rage as I shot her a glare. She looked utterly terrified. She never expected their plot would be revealed like this. Her hands fidgeted, her entire body trembling. She was panicking. And I realized this was only the beginning. A surge of adrenaline coursed through my veins as I took advantage of Cheryl's stunned silence. My hands trembled as I reached into my bag, pulling out my cell phone. I quickly opened the recording app and, without hesitation, turned to Cheryl. Call them again. Her eyes widened. What? Call my husband.
Now.
My voice was firm, unyielding. Cheryl swallowed hard, torn between fear and hesitation. But with my piercing gaze locking her in place, she knew she had no choice. Hands shaking, she dialed the number. After a few rings, the call connected. What's up, Cheryl? My husband's voice came through the speaker, casual, almost bored. Then, my son's voice followed, laughing. Did she finally kick the bucket? My stomach twisted in horror. But I forced myself to remain silent, holding the phone steady as the recording continued. Don't worry, we'll split Mom's insurance money evenly, Miguel said casually. Actually, Cheryl, you'll get a bit more for all your trouble. Yeah, adding detergent to her meals is no small feat, you deserve it, Oliver added with a chuckle. Their laughter was sickening. The call ended with an abrupt click. My grip on the phone tightened as I pressed the stop button on the recording app. Slowly, I turned to Cheryl. She stood frozen, her face ashen. My blood boiled with rage. For a moment, Cheryl stared at me, breathing heavily, her fingers twisting in nervous knots. She knew there was no way out now. Finally, she broke. It wasn't my idea, she blurted out, her voice barely above a whisper. They, Oliver and Miguel, they were the ones who planned everything. I grabbed her by the shoulders. Start talking. She shuddered and lowered her gaze, finally accepting that there was no escape. Your husband and son, they love to gamble, she admitted. They started gambling together years ago, but they kept losing. The debts piled up, but they wouldn't stop. It became an obsession. I felt sick. I knew my husband played cards occasionally, but I had no idea it had escalated to this. Cheryl took a deep breath before continuing. 2 years ago, they were drowning in debt. That's when they came up with a plan to take out a life insurance policy on you. You didn't know, but they made sure the payout would be huge if something happened to you. My heart pounded violently in my chest. At first, they thought they could just wait it out. Maybe you'd get sick naturally. But when you didn't, they got desperate. That's when they came up with the idea to slowly poison you. I felt like I was going to be sick. They made me handle all your meals, Cheryl admitted, guilt-ridden. At first, I didn't want to, but they pressured me, saying it was the only way. So I started cooking for you, making sure to mix just enough detergent into your food to make you weaker over time. Not enough to kill you right away, but enough to make you sick. I clenched my fists. And you went along with it, I hissed. She flinched. I didn't have a choice. They kept assuring me it would work, that you wouldn't suffer, that it was just a means to an end. I inhaled sharply, trying to control my trembling. 2 years. For 2 years, I had been slowly poisoned by the very people I loved most. But not anymore. I needed to act fast. Where are you going? Cheryl asked as I grabbed my purse. To the bathroom, I lied. She watched me suspiciously, but didn't protest. I stepped out of the hospital room, my heart pounding. But I didn't head for the bathroom. Instead, I walked straight out of the hospital. At first, I thought about going home, confronting my husband and son directly.
But no.
That wasn't enough. They needed to pay. I hailed a cab and directed it to the nearest law office. The moment I stepped in, I found a lawyer and laid everything out. At first, he was skeptical until I played the recording. His expression changed in an instant. "This is serious," he said. "You need to go to the police immediately." "I will," I assured him. "But first, I need to make sure all my legal affairs are in order." Together, we prepared the necessary paperwork. Everything I needed to protect myself, bank accounts, property rights, insurance claims, was now secure. Only then did I make my way to the police station. The officers were doubtful at first, but when I played the recording, everything changed. They immediately launched an investigation. A female officer accompanied me back to the hospital while another team, along with my lawyer, went to my house. When we arrived, Cheryl was still in my hospital room, pale, broken, defeated. Without hesitation, the officers arrested her. For the first time in a long while, I felt a wave of relief. But it wasn't over yet. I knew Oliver and Miguel would be furious when they found out. They might even come after me. But I wouldn't be the weak, naive woman they thought I was anymore. As I lay in my hospital bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I made a silent vow. They had tried to end my life.
But now,
I would be the one to end theirs. Not through poison, not through violence, but through justice. A few days later, while I was still recovering in the hospital, 2 police officers arrived in my room. My heart pounded as I sat up, bracing myself for the worst. Had my husband and son escaped? Had Cheryl managed to manipulate her way out? I clenched my fists, fighting back the fear and uncertainty. But to my relief, the officers informed me that all 3, my husband, my son, and Cheryl, had been safely arrested. At first, when the police had entered my home, neither Oliver nor Miguel were there. It seemed like they had fled, an obvious reaction for people with so much to lose. But the truth was far more pathetic. They hadn't even realized they were wanted by the police. They were just out gambling. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Of course they were. They had been so obsessed with their addictions that they hadn't even bothered to check on me. While I was lying in a hospital bed, poisoned and barely clinging to life, they were wasting money at a casino. Their arrogance, their recklessness, it led to their swift downfall. They were picked up by police during a routine patrol, questioned, and arrested on the spot. In the end, all 3 of them were charged with attempted murder. With Oliver in jail, I seized the opportunity to finally free myself. Through my lawyer, I had divorce papers served to him immediately. At first, he refused. "You think you can just cut me off like this?" he had the audacity to say. But when my lawyer detailed the financial damages he owed me, on top of legal fees, penalties, and property claims, his resistance crumbled. In the end, he signed the papers, agreeing to all my conditions. I got the house. I got my financial assets. And most importantly, I got my freedom. As for Miguel, there was no hesitation on my part. Through a legal affidavit, I severed all family ties with him. No more financial support. No more motherly affection. Even if he were to be released one day, to me, he was nothing more than a stranger. And Cheryl? I made sure her family knew everything. When I first confronted her parents, they refused to believe me. "Our daughter would never do something like that," they said, shaking their heads in disbelief. But as I told them everything, every horrifying detail, every betrayal, every moment of my slow poisoning, I watched the color drain from their faces. By the end, they weren't just shaken. They were devastated. Cheryl's mother left the room without a word. When she returned, she carried a thick envelope. She placed it in my hands, her eyes filled with guilt. "This is for you," she whispered. Inside was $50,000. I stared at it in shock. "Compensation? Please," her father said. "We know this doesn't undo what she did. But we want to do something, anything to help you." I tried to refuse. I didn't want their money. But they insisted. Almost in tears, they begged me to accept it. So in the end, I did. Time passed, and with every day, I felt lighter. For the first time in years, I could finally breathe. The spacious house, once filled with whispers of deceit and cold indifference, now belonged to me alone. It was silent, peaceful, and I could finally eat whatever I wanted without fear. Of course, the trauma lingered. Ever since the poisoning, I had become a bit of a germaphobe. I used minimal soap when washing dishes, meticulously rinsing everything to ensure no residue was left behind. It wasn't just dishes, showering, laundry, even the way I handled food had changed. I knew it wasn't rational. I knew it was a scar left by what they had done to me. But at least now I had the freedom to heal. Some might say I was emotionally scarred, but I didn't see it that way. I was relieved. I was refreshed. I was alive. One day, I decided to make a change. I switched to a new phone. The old one, the one that held the incriminating recordings, the one that was tied to years of pain and betrayal, was turned over to the police. I never wanted to see it again. Just touching it felt disgusting. And as I held my new phone in my hands, I smiled. A fresh start. A clean slate. I had spent years trapped in the shadows of my past, suffocating under the weight of my family's betrayal.
But now?
Now I was free. And maybe, just maybe, I'd start something new. Something just for me. Maybe I'd join the world of live streaming. Cooking, perhaps? After all, for years, I had let Cheryl handle my meals. I had let fear and manipulation take control of my life.
But now?
Now, I wanted to cook for myself. And maybe, just maybe, I'd share that journey with the world. Because for the first time in a long, long time, I was ready to live. Please feel free to comment below if you like this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.